Hey friends, it's Eric Hulkran, and welcome to another episode of the Michigan's Best Podcast. All May long, whether you're watching the video version of this podcast or you're checking out the audio version of the podcast, it is brought to you by these sponsors who helped us feed the front lines and feed first responders on Nurses Day. Zhang Financial, Henry A. Fox Sales, University of Michigan Credit Union, Garrett's Appliance, Muskegon Surgical Associates, and Chemical Bank, a division of TCF National Bank. Bob, how are you, my friend?
Fabulous. Another great day.
It is another great day. It is episode 3 as we are continuing to share good news. And this morning, you and I are recording this about 10 a.m., depending on when you're listening to this, is sort of irrelevant other than I'm saying on my way to get ready for this, I went off for coffee and the commute started to feel a little bit more like normal. 2 weeks ago, I would drive out and it'd be sort of a ghost town and I would go get coffee and come back home. But it felt like, I don't know if we're getting back to whatever next is, but it certainly feels like more people are out and about. And I don't know what you guys are feeling at the store level, but it certainly feels like if coffee could be a bellwether, it might feel like that's a sign of some sort of positivity.
Oh, totally. I mean, we've definitely moved out of the realm of it feels like we're in a movie, an alien movie, driving down the road. Right. So, there's traffic again and so on. It's not at full capacity, that's for sure. But if we're to kind of use Biggby as a bellwether, actually, Mother's Day, which was now, I think, one weekend ago or whatever, we surpassed our 2019 numbers. And, you have to keep in mind, not even all of our locations are open. So only 92% of our locations are open, but our system-wide sales went past. And, that weekend when it went past, I said, I think things are getting back to normal. And it's not even that, there's people pushing the front edge of, the stay-at-home order or anything like that. I think it's just that people are getting more and more comfortable with the safety protocols that are out there that businesses are doing. And people are going to businesses where they feel like those safety protocols are in good order, in good standing,
Now, this might be kind of an out of left field question, but this is just my curiosity, and not on an individual store basis, but kind of like an all-encompassing basis. Have you guys seen the peaks shift? Like typically I'm sure it would be 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., but I'm wondering as people are working at home, if that's moved later. Have you seen that happening at the store level?
Yeah, of course, it depends on the location, right?
Sure.
So we have like downtown business locations that there is no downtown business, and they might not even be open, right? So, but most of our stores do have modified hours, and they tend to close a little earlier. It seems like people are going home a lot sooner, basically going home for dinner, which is really cool, with the family or whatever.
Yeah.
But generally, I think it's 6 to 6, 6 to 7, something like that. We shift a little bit on the weekends. But I got some notifications even today of stores that are returning to normal hours because people, getting back to normal is like a magnet, right? And they're the iron. And so that magnet is just hanging out there.
For sure. And so speaking of that, as we're moving towards whatever is next, whatever, I'll use it in air quotes, right? Whatever the word open is going to be, what is that like for you guys? Because and we'll talk about the second part of this, but you guys are ostensibly two businesses. There's a home office, portion of it, but then there's the store, or as you guys would refer to it, the unit level. And at the store level, what is this continuing iteration of you guys kind of moving towards, if you are the bellwether, right? Like, what does this look like as you're thinking about opening patios and then moving from patios to inside the store? What does that stuff look like for you guys?
Yeah, so definitely, and the weather's turning, so we can get that patio furniture out, and it's got to be properly distanced and so on. And Biggby's been really at the leading edge of, keeping track of what everything proper is from a safety and sanitation perspective, both for the customer and the barista. We want everybody to be healthy. We want everybody to follow protocols. We are asking customers to wear masks if they're coming into, one of our lobby locations and so on and so forth. But what's really changed is for a moment, we didn't need as many people from a staffing perspective at the unit level because there just weren't as many people buying cups of coffee. But suddenly we're in hiring mode, right? And so, and with unemployment between 20 and 25% or heading in that direction,
sure.
I think is what I heard Chairman Powell say this weekend. People, people need work, people need to earn revenue, and so on and so forth. But what's really changed is technology, and technology fast. So getting order, like DoorDash and things like that, hooked up with Biggby Coffee, and getting that going, like that itself added like 1.2% to our sales. We're going to add other ones, but we got to stand employees up and train them in a manner that involves video training, and right. Things of that nature. We've been such a hands-on, next to you kind of business, and now it's certainly more than twice arm's length in order to get that same job done. But I think Biggby's like just a note of optimism, what returning to normal looks like, and the fact that sales are getting back to normal, and we're in a hiring mode. It's pretty cool. Now, there's a few technological changes too. The more that we can do touchless pay. But one of the things that we added at Biggby Coffee is the ability to tip on credit card, as an example. Not nice. At all units, and what that's done is changed the hourly rate at a Biggby Coffee to something that's closer to $18 to $20 an hour, because people have been hyper generous at tipping using their credit card. So there's just things that are changing, and by the way, they're probably not going to go back.
No, I think that's one of the things that you're seeing here is, and I think of this often when I go through whatever the drive-through is, if Biggby, whatever, is like we used to take that stuff for granted, and now these people are on the front line as well, right? They're doing this day in and day out to make sure these businesses are open the same way that the grocery store is doing, in the same way, So yeah, I feel that as well. When we go through, it's it's easily 20-30% depending on what we're doing, right? Because you just are like, yeah, you're doing a job that we all took for granted 12 weeks ago, and now has a much different, I'll say this, has a much different weight to it, right? They are, to your point, like these businesses are keeping us grounded, keeping us centered, keeping us able to communicate and have a touch point with other humans when we might not be able to, because we're social distancing or quarantining ourselves in our homes. So yeah, I would absolutely echo that I feel a lot different now going through a drive-through than I did 3 months ago.
Yeah, and Biggby's always been a place where you go get a smile and a cup of coffee, and we can't ignore the fact that folks are getting a dopamine rush just because they're seeing other people, than the people within their four walls of their house, who are smiling, engaging, happy to see you, and so on and so forth. And even like when we go for walks, my wife and I in our neighborhood, the whole idea is try to avoid everybody. Right. It's like a video game.
Yes. Right? It's Bob, okay. Bob playing Frogger, right? Like trying to get across. Right. Yeah.
But when you go to a Biggby Coffee, one thing you're getting is your cup of coffee, and the other thing is, and although everybody's masked, you can still see in the eyes that people are smiling, right? And they're happy to see you. And boy, that's just a different psychology right there,
And the other thing that I found is interesting, and this is one man's experience in the world, is even though you're through a drive-through, and even though it might be 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning when people might be in a rush or used to be in a rush, the barista and the people behind you have a little bit more grace with having some actual conversation, right? So it's not just, here's my credit card, or here's $20 and here's a cup of coffee. It's, how's your day? What are you doing today? Which that was the case at Biggby before, but totally. It feels like we're doing more of it, and for a little bit more extended time, to get to your point, to get that dopamine rush, which is awesome. So my question to you, though, as Bob the human, you guys have built this organization, and when you go through the franchisee training, it's like, as you said, very hands-on and very full of joy and full of love and full of happiness. What is, and I have not asked you this on the prior two episodes, but what has this been like for you guys to kind of iterate that training, both for the employees in the stores and people who are thinking of opening or running their own units, to keep that level of joy and happiness when, I'll use your words, we're at 2 arm's length distances? What has that been like for you guys?
Well, I'll tell you, the first time we faced this was in the early 2000s, because when Biggby first opened, it was all lobby only. And in the early 2000s, we started opening drive-through locations. And everybody's concern was, well, how are we going to communicate in a drive-through location the kind of things that we do person to person over a counter, right? And so to me, this is just an extension of that. And what I would say is, if your values are grounded, and ours are grounded in supporting people and building a life they love, if they're really grounded, it emanates regardless, right? Whatever methodology you're using. So now we're talking about learning management systems and videos, video training. And that seems really like triple arm's length away.
Right.
But I don't know if you remember in the old days, they would tell you, if you were making a phone call, if you smile on the phone, people can feel the difference, And I think it's the same thing here. We just have to keep smiling and keep having a positive attitude, regardless of what system we're using, right? That just needs to effuse from us, and nothing will be different.
And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I alluded to this a couple minutes ago, is there's a second arm to Biggby that most consumers probably have no knowledge of, which is what you were calling the home office.
Home office.
And I've been excited about having this conversation because this is a thing that I've been thinking about a lot as we've been here for now, 12, feels like 11 or 12 weeks. I don't have the number in front of me, and it honestly doesn't really matter. But what work is going to look like as we go forward. I would love to get your thoughts on what that feels like from a home office perspective, because I have my own thoughts on what we've been doing as MLive and what do we need, what do we not need, and I'm interested in your thought as the co-CEO. Do we need buildings? Do we need offices? Do we need desks? What are you looking at as you're going through the rest of this year?
Yeah. Well, I don't think our home office will regroup at the home office ever again the way it was. And so we're not waiting for the pandemic to be over. We're not waiting for there to be a cure. What we found almost immediately is that this is really a functional way to do business. And, we were a bunch of old dudes that couldn't really grok that. But suddenly, the way my son has been doing it for years and years and years, and I always made fun of him because I'd be like, well, why don't you get out from behind your computer and go actually visit your friends? Wouldn't that be smart? Well, what it turns out is what's smart is exactly what we're doing here. And what I wouldn't want to be is in the office rental business right now, because I think we're looking at our office and certainly repurposing it maybe to a video studio rather than actually being an office. But, you just take commute time. Three of us the other day were on a call like this. Each of us live somewhere between an hour and a half away. For us to have had that meeting at the office would have involved something like 6 hours of commute time between all three of us. Well, what a waste of time.
Like, not to get all gnarly into your books, but waste of money as well, right? Because there's a monetary cost to you guys being in a car for 6 hours.
Yeah. And, we used to rationalize it like, oh, we can make phone calls while we're in there. It's good think time. There's all these kinds of things that we were running through on that. Environmentally, by the way, won't that be pretty cool too, that we won't be burning all that gas and contributing all that CO2 and so on to the environment. But, what's really changed is this idea that we used to think that we would hire for the home office. Home office has about 70 people, skill sets that lived within a 90-mile radius of our home office, an hour and a half away. And we realized suddenly, well, you know what, we can hire people from anywhere in the country. It's reasonable from a time zone perspective. But for example, our chief development officer for franchising, she lives in Connecticut. And you know what? It's okay that she lives in Connecticut. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. She gets on the phone just like this, where she is geographically, doesn't really matter. So frankly, we're super excited. It doesn't mean the end of personal meetings. We still have things like annual franchise meetings where everybody gets together, and we can't wait to have one of those again.
Have you guys, not to cut you off, but have you guys thought about those? Because those I've been to 2 of them. They've been big, fun celebrations of all that you guys do. Yeah. Have you kind of thought about what a new one of those would look like?
Yeah, I mean, right now, health and safety is just our leading decision-making criteria, and I don't think we can really consider an in-person meeting. We were scheduled to be at the Amway Grand this year. It was going to be a big to-do in early August, and I just don't think that that's reasonable. Now, we'll try to do some online deal. Probably won't be as dynamic or whatever, but we look forward to that moment that it is safe and secure to get us all together again, and to the point that we can all hug each other again. That's, we all need that, right? So
Yes.
I hope everybody that's within their four walls, whoever they got within their four walls, that they're hugging their spouse or their kids just maybe 2x what they were before, because it makes a big difference to your brain and to your body.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I was talking to a company that deals with like hospice, right? And we were having this really fascinating conversation about human touch. And obviously, it was to their industry. It's much different to what you and I are talking about. However, the universal concept is the same: is that there's like tremendous power in touching another human being, and
Totally.
missing that for 11 weeks, 12 weeks, 13 weeks, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months can have some ramifications that we're going to have to think about as a society, I think.
That's right. But getting back to the home office, you've got leading industries like Twitter or Google or whatever. And sometimes we look at Silicon Valley and we're like, those guys, whatever. I think they're right on this one. That going back is just really not quite necessary at this point. And so when we talk about the idea of going back to normal, I think we don't want to burn mind space on trying to get back to all things normal. We need to have an open mind to some degree and think about what the new normal will be, not just for COVID, but forever.
And that's one of the interesting things that kind of has come out of this mind space, and you and I have spoken about this offline, is this, what stuff have we had to shed in the short term that turned out to actually be good? We don't miss it, we don't need it. And what innovations have we had to kind of put in place to make our operations go forward that we should keep? For example, like you said, do we need an office? Should that office be something else? Should it be a video studio, right? Should we turn it into a production space that does its podcasts and TV commercials and all that stuff in one place? Should it be, whatever? I think that's the way that everybody should be thinking about this, is these moments of opportunity, as opposed to, you and I again have talked about this for now 3 episodes, and we'll continue to do this, as opposed to kind of living in the before and going, I wish it was like, because it's never going to be like whatever, however you finish that sentence, it's never
Yeah.
going to be like that. So there's only one direction to go.
Yeah. And you know what? Every pandemic ever has produced a great leap forward in some technological perspective. I mean, we think of technology as computers today. But sanitation was the thing that really drove forward, post the plague and the Spanish flu and all these kinds of cholera and all this. Our sanitation got better and better and better. And I think the great leap forwards for us are going to be about communication and new ways of communication. And I'm just really excited about those.
And so, last question for today, because I know you will love this one. One of the things that I've been telling businesses for the last 11 weeks is, here's all the marketing stuff that you can do, which is great. But then I've been ending all of these things by saying, also, you got to get out of your own head. You got to go for a walk every single day.
Totally.
So I'm wondering, how many times are you and your wife going for walks? How long are they? And how empowering are they for you to come back and get back at this and continue to pivot and iterate?
Yeah, I go every day, rain or shine. Michelle and I go for maybe a 3 to 5 mile walk together every day. I try to rack up somewhere between 8 and 10 miles a day. I love my weekends. Sunday
Right.
morning, I went out early. It was pouring rain. I loved it because there was nobody else out there. Had my raincoat on, did 7.5 miles. And, something really special happens out there after about mile 3, where you can start sorting through some things in your head and getting aligned. It's just listening to nature, the wind, the trees, the water, the birds, all that stuff has a really positive impact on your mind and your mind space. And I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, and I was fortunate when I was a kid. My aunt used to live in San Diego, and she taught me how to surf. And that was like
Yeah.
that first moment where I had that experience where you'd be out and there'd be nothing, right? You're not hearing the beach. You're just hearing, you're waiting for a wave and all that stuff. And thank God that kind of stuck with me, because then you find these spaces when you're doing 5 miles or 7 miles or whatever. And I can't, I'm with you. I can't recommend it enough. And I certainly think when you're in a situation like this that feels high stress and high anxiety, you need to be
Yeah.
outside more. And
Totally.
I joke, like, if you don't have a dog, borrow somebody else's dog. They would love for you to walk their
Totally.
dog.
Yeah, totally. Well, people have been talking about the COVID-19, the other 19, and that's the 19 pounds that they've put on their
Right.
belly, right? And so, the general rules are all the same, right? Stay hydrated, eat balanced, get the right sleep, and get outside if you can. And these things are simple. Sometimes they're hard to do. Lives are complicated and so on. But if you can write those 4 things down and kind of just keep looking at them every day, make some minor commitment to yourself about what you're going to do today, it could really make your COVID-19 experience not about weight, but about your own health and safety.
And I would say, Bob, to your point, like, I know life gets busy, but if you put your phone down and went for a block walk every day, eventually it'd be 2, eventually it'd be 3, eventually it'd be a mile, right? Because you would make it a habit. I had a friend who used to say, I don't find time, I make time. And you would make time for something like this.
That's right. I schedule walks like I schedule a meeting. And, the thing of it is if I wait for my walk to be the time that's left over, there's no time left over.
Right.
So, what is your priority? Your priority is you. You're not useful to your family. You're not useful to your job, and you're not useful to the community unless you are in good health yourself. And so if you can start with you and schedule some time for yourself, that would be really a positive step.
And I will leave everybody with a working pro tip, because I had a couple coworkers who were like, I feel like my whole day is filled with meetings. And I'm like, dude, here's what you do. You get up on Saturday or Sunday, whenever you check back in, and you mark on your calendar an hour that no one can touch. And then that's where you put that stuff. And so they can't mark over it. Yeah, if you leave Monday open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., they will fill it for you. I promise you, they'll fill it for you. But if you mark out an hour each day, that's yours to do your thing. All right, my friend, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week for episode 4.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you again for checking out the Michigan's Best Podcast. Want to take a moment to thank the other sponsors who are making these podcasts possible all May long. We're talking about Frankenmuth Credit Union, Northwoods Village, Fifth Third Bank, Stanley Steamer, and Chelsea State Bank. So thank you to all of them and to our other sponsors who are making these podcasts possible all May long. Be well, friends.